It's not gold or jewels that this man is after, but birds, dead birds. This is the story of the weirdest museum heist ever. On the night of July 23, 2009, a man wearing a dark hooded jacket, gloves and a face mask snuck into the Natural History Museum at Tring in England. He was carrying a crowbar and a drill, and he had his sights set on the locked glass display cases containing the precious cargo. And when he was done, he made off with almost 300 of them. Now, to the average person, this might seem like a pretty strange thing to steal. So why did he do it? Well, we'll tell you right after. Edwin Rist was not your average criminal. He was a professional with a plan and a very specific target. A skilled engineer and former British Army officer, Rist had experience in demolition and bomb disposal, skills he honed during his time in the military. He put those skills to use in the planning and execution of the heist, which he had been working on for over 2 years. So what exactly was he after? It turns out he was on the hunt for birds, specifically preserved tropical birds from the collection of the Natural History Museum at Tring. But not just any birds, mind you, these were rare and valuable specimens, some of which were over 100 years old. In total, he made off with 287 of them. The Natural History Museum at Tring was established in 1892 and is home to one of the most comprehensive collections of zoological specimens in the world. With over 5 million specimens, the museum's collection includes insects, minerals, fossils, and of course, birds. What makes the museum's bird collection so unique is the specimens themselves. Many of them were collected by renowned naturalists like Alfred Russel Wallace and Charles Darwin. For example, the museum has Darwin's original finches from the Galapagos Islands, which he collected during the voyage of the Beagle. But what makes these birds so special isn't just their age or who collected them. It's the data associated with the specimens. You see, back in Darwin's day, when explorers would travel too far off lands, they would collect specimens of everything they could find. They would note down where and when they found each specimen, as well as any other relevant information. This data is invaluable for scientists today because it allows them to track changes in species over time. By studying these specimens, scientists can learn how animals have changed in response to environmental pressures, as well as how they have remained the same. To give you an example, let us say that you want to study how the size of beaks on warblers has changed over the last century. With the specimens and data from the Natural History Museum at Tring, you could do that. If you took a random sample of the birds in their collection, you could measure the beaks of the birds and then compare those measurements to data from when the birds were collected. If the beaks are larger now than they were then, that could indicate that the warblers have been evolving in response to changes in their environment. Maybe there has been a change in the type of food that is available, or perhaps the climate has changed and that has affected the size of the beaks. Either way, the data would be useful for scientists to have. But what does this have to do with Edwin Rist and his bizarre heist? Well, it turns out that Rist wasn't interested in selling the birds on the black market. He wanted them for himself. A former soldier, Rist had developed an obsession with birds while stationed in Borneo in the 1980s. It was there that he first became fascinated by the different species of birds and started collecting them. When he returned to England, he continued his bird collecting hobby. But as he got older, he became increasingly frustrated that he couldn't get the specimens he really wanted. That's when he hatched his plan to steal them from the Natural History Museum at Tring. With his military background, Rist was well versed in the use of explosives and other demolition techniques. Using this knowledge, he planned a heist that would allow him to get close enough to the birds to take them without setting off the alarms or triggering any other security measures. Over the next 2 years, he studied the museum, making notes on its layout and security system. He also spent a lot of time researching birds, learning everything he could about them. In particular, he focused on the birds that were on display at the museum. He wanted to make sure that if he did manage to pull off his heist, he would know exactly what he was stealing. When the time came, Rist wasted no time in getting to work. He broke into the museum and made his way to the glass display cases containing the birds. Using his crowbar and drill, he smashed the glass and made off with 287 of the specimens. He then fled the scene, leaving behind a note that read, "Sorry about this, but he who dies must pay the collector." In the wake of the heist, there was a public outcry. How could someone be so brazen as to steal from a museum? What was the motive behind the theft, and what would become of the stolen birds? For a while, the answers to these questions remained elusive. The police were baffled and the museum staff were devastated. Eventually, though, the police were able to track down Rist and bring him to justice. He was charged with 28 counts of theft and sent to prison. As for the stolen birds, they were never recovered. Rist had either sold them on the black market or given them away. Today, the Natural History Museum at Tring is still home to a vast array of specimens, but the loss of the 287 birds is still felt. The museum staff have worked hard to replace the specimens, but it's a slow process. It takes time to track down new specimens, and often the data associated with them is incomplete. But the staff are determined to one day have a complete collection once again. In the meantime, they are using technology to help fill the gaps. The museum has a digital imaging studio where staff can photograph and catalog specimens. They are also working with other museums and private collectors to borrow specimens. In addition, the staff are raising funds for a new wing on the museum that will house their collection. The new wing will also have state-of-the-art security systems to protect the specimens from theft. The loss of the 287 birds was a devastating blow to the natural history museum at Tring, but the staff are determined to make the best of a bad situation. They are using technology and working with other institutions to try to replace the lost specimens, and they are also raising funds for a new wing on the museum that will better protect its collection. The staff's dedication to the museum's collection is an inspiration to us all. They are passionate about their work and are committed to sharing the wonders of the natural world with everyone. And if you love stories like this, don't forget to subscribe.